been operating for, I think he stated, 40 years. I'm very, very, very proud of my association with this organization. Let me kick off by reciting a poem. I hope my memory will serve me well. And I came across this poem when I was at my first year at high school, Lovedale, Alice in the Eastern Cape. In times of trouble, challenges, I always recite this poem to myself, and it tends to reinforce me spiritually or in any other way. Here it goes. The title is Invictus, Unconquered. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. Out of the night that covers me, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate or how just the punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. It's by William Henley. I recited this poem when I was detained for the first time in solitary confinement. When there were at some stage about 5 of the people who were part of the security system. I could tell and I feared that they were going to do away with me now, and that my death would be explained in various ways, as has happened with other people who had died in detention. So I'm handcuffed behind my hands, and there are all these people, about 5 of them. They said, "What were those words? What were you talking about?" I said, "No, I was talking to myself." And some had heard those words. And then I said to them, "Look, everybody, when they come home from work, generally tend to explain what had transpired at work, in the office, wherever they might be working. And they talk about how it was a good day and how it was a not so good a day or something like that. And what do you do when you come home to your family, your wife, your children? What do you say about how it was? What are you going to say to them about what you're contemplating now? Will you say, 'My wife, dear wife, children, there was this black guy who was handcuffed behind his back and we got rid of him'? Are you going to say that?" And just within a minute, they all just simply moved away from me. It's like they dissipated. Let me now get to the crux of my presentation here, and how I had undergone this ideological metamorphosis from being an anarchist and communist and to become a libertarian, a free marketeer. Leon went the same route as well, in different ways. I first came across the idea of socialism, communism, when I was about, say, 11 years of age. That seems very tender. And the reason was the household was highly politicized. My uncle, who had been a member of the Pan-Africanist Congress, Bamsi Boto, they used to talk about politics together with some of his comrades or colleagues, whatever they called themselves at that time. That got me to be interested superficially in the struggle of this country, because they always alluded to the prevailing social political circumstances. And then I came across a book at the library. I had this intellectually ravenous appetite for reading books at a very young age. For example, But when somebody talked about Islam, I decided to lay my hands on the Quran. And so it happened. Now, I'm in this household, and my uncle is being sought by the special branch and the armed policemen. And these guys are walking all over the show. Some are on the roof, jumping on the roof. And they were saying, where is that communist? Bam, that was my uncle. What I say, some would scream in Afrikaans. Where is he? But I became so interested in the word communism, terrorist, all of that stuff. But I didn't do anything about that. But I wanted to lay my hands on a book on something that would explain what that was about. And then I read a book, and that book's title was, I was trying to look up the author's name. It was The Pleasures of Being a Nonconformist. That book was so powerful. It had such an impact on me because I started to think as an individual and not part of a group, as an individual. And that for me was very important. And so one of the things that I did was, because I was trying to find out also, this was now about, I was about 17 years of age. I was trying to find out as to what was happening in the world, my focus being on two Germanys, West Germany, East Germany. West Germany had become the second biggest economy in the world after the country had been devastated during the Second World War. And East Germany was just this economic abyss with almost just nothing in comparison on an economic basis between the two Germanies. Same people, same culture, same language, relatives on both sides. What could explain this discrepancy? What could it? And then my mind went to Korea, North Korea, South Korea. South Korea, a powerful economic hub. And North Korea, a dark country, and economically insignificant. And that was the case that got me to be curious about it. But I had not embraced capitalism at that stage. I had not embraced also communism fully at that stage. And then I came across a book because I wanted to understand as to what communism was about, the communist concept, the ideology, what was it about? I got a book which was heavy reading, Grundrisse, and then it was Das Kapital. Oh, heavy reading. I did not finish reading the book. I think I read it about halfway, but everything that was in the book that I could understand fired me up. The theory of alienation, class conflict philosophy, the doctrine of communism. I started looking for work because what had happened was in the Western Cape, because there was the colored preferential policy, and so if you are a black person like me, though I'm lighter than many colors, but classified as a black person, I could not get any skilled job whatsoever. This was the policy that prevailed at the time. So I was asking all sorts of questions about this. What's going on? What's this policy? What's going on here? And then I got to understand something that I believed in. But I was wrong, as it turned out later. And that is that the South African government's policy of apartheid was a capitalist country. It was a capitalist system. I embraced that fully. And then later on, I was looking for work. And joining it, this was what I said before. And I looked up an advertisement that was drawn to my attention by a friend of mine. It required a facilitator to to run programs. I called, didn't get through, but left a message on the answering machine, and on the answering machine the message was, please leave your number and your contact details and your name, please. This is the Free Market Foundation. Free Market Foundation? But I was looking for bread, I was looking for work. And then he called the second day, third day, then I was interviewed by Jenny Harris, who was the manager at the Free Market Foundation's office, running the free market trading course. And she asked me about my political background. I was quite open and explained that I had been involved, I was still part of the Black Consciousness Movement. Our organization in the Western Cape was the Black Mamba Youth Movement. And what do you know about socialism and communism? I explained what I knew. And she thought, whew, no, that's too much. But she said, come back again and say, in 2 weeks' time, maybe in 2 days' time or something like that, leave your contact details here. Unknown to me, she was calling Leon and said, Leon, there's this guy here that we're interviewing. This is his background. And Jenny tells me that Leon said, you have to be damn careful because this guy might be the one guy who might sabotage everything. But then Jenny said, when we had the second interview, that she thought that because I had this insight into communism, that I might just be the right person that would be needed to run the course as a facilitator and be able to engage people coming on the course who were confirmed communists and believed in nationalization and all of that stuff. Before then, I had read the books on Trotsky, the Prophet and the Prophet Announced. I had read just about almost anything that I could find. Then I read the book by Milton Friedman, Free to Choose. Now, Friedman writes in that book in a way that's simple for just about anybody to understand. Then there was another book that I read, and this was the book by Walter Williams titled South Africa's War Against Capitalism. What the blazes is going on here? You know, I thought to myself, what's going on? South Africa's war against capitalism. The South African system was this system that was a capitalist system. I believe that. So South Africa's war against capitalism. And then I thought to myself, because I'm confused now, let me just think about this system that's known as apartheid. The government is ubiquitous. The government is omnipotent. Every aspect of black life had been regulated. Blacks had effectively been nationalized by the apartheid system. And then I thought to myself, gosh, what's going on here? Because the blacks, I thought to myself, no, I'm all by myself thinking these things through. Black life was being regulated from the cradle to the grave. It was in terms of the apartheid system as to where you were going to be born, namely in a black hospital, in the townships or in some other Blanke hospitals, no white hospital kind of story. And the apartheid system is determined as to where you could be buried in a black cemetery in a township, not anywhere else other than black. And also the schools were determined by the government to which you could be sent to be educated and all of that stuff. This was for me all a bit too much. And then it dawned on me when Walter Williams said, when he had been invited by Leon Lowe to the Free Market Foundation and also with some invited members of the public, when he said, if the communists were to come to South Africa, they would find a really ready-made home in this country. And that's what changed me. That's what changed me. It got me to think, and so I read Thomas Sowell, and then they reinforced in me the idea of liberty, the idea of the free market. They did. But I had to think in terms of how I could explain my conversion to some of the people that were involved with me in the struggle against apartheid. Some had just come in from exile, and these were people that I used to rub shoulders in the broad anti-apartheid struggle. And then I read Friedrich Hayek's book, The Road to Serfdom. He called the free market system a spontaneous order. That was what really clicked now in my mind. And I started thinking to myself, okay, people in their normal state of affairs and not having any ideology imposed on them, what do? It was self-evident that people, when studying their own personal socio-economic circumstances, they want to make improvements on those socio-economic circumstances. Nobody was telling them as to what they should do. So some would go set up a business, and the others, less entrepreneurial, would knock on the doors of the other people that were operating businesses or were launching businesses. And I thought to myself, this is really a spontaneous order. And then in 1991, when the Free Market Foundation had decided that I should be sent to Czechoslovakia then, and Leon was at the forefront of this idea. The occasion was the Montpellier Society meeting that was addressed. The host being the Libertarian Institute, and the principal people involved were Václav Klaus and Václav Havel, who became the de facto president, de facto prime minister. It was one of those wonderful occasions. I will not dwell on what transpired then again, but that had really, really inspired me. So I had decided to go to Moscow in 1991 because I wanted to see what the country was like under communism. It was for me one of those eye-opening meetings that I had attended. And no, it was not a meeting in Moscow as such. It was all on my own. And I had asked Michael O'Dowd, who had been with me in Czechoslovakia, if he could assist me with a couple of rands or something like that, because I had not budgeted properly privately for that length of my stay in Moscow. In Moscow, arriving in Moscow, I got the services of a person who used to be a pilot. He knew a smattering of English, and I said, I want to see and know as much as possible about communism, socialism. He said to me, no economy here. No economy here. That's what he said to me. I was puzzled. So I'm in this car, and you drive past McDonald's outlet, which was the first one in that country. The queue was winding around blocks of buildings and so on. And I said to this driver, look, that person, the last person in the queue, will be served next year. So why is he sticking around in the queue? He said, I don't know. So that reflects as to how desperate the economic situation was in that country. Anyway, I arrived at the hotel, and the following morning, through the good offices of my interpreter, I said, I want to see where people are selling things. So he took me to a the place where there was an informal business situation taking place. And I was watching one guy who was selling loaves of bread from the back of his truck with the queue that was about maybe 10, 20 people. I asked him as to how much he was charging per loaf of bread. Let us say, for argument's sake, because I can't remember precisely how much it was, let us say it was 10 rubles. The following day, I go to the same place, I see the same truck, I see a longer queue, and this guy no longer charges 10 rubles. He charges 15 rubles. I knew what was happening. And I said, through, again, my interpreter, I said, please ask him as to why he had been charging 10 rubles per loaf, and the following day charging 15 rubles, and the queue being longer. And this guy, the trader, said, well, I don't know why I'm doing this. Now, why I'm citing this case is because it goes to show that this is what happens in human nature, in the economic arena. If the queue for the goods or services that you are selling becomes longer than before, you raise the price of that accordingly. Nobody tells you. This guy was not told by an economics lecturer as to what he should do on observing that the queue was getting longer. Oh my word, I wanted to say everything. Yeah.
Okay, finish.
Okay, let me get to the point now. Capitalism is a spontaneous order. That for me, became very, very clear as I alluded to this earlier on. And the thing about capitalism is that it's about human nature. It's a reflection of human nature. Anybody right across all cultures operate the way they would operate in a free economy. The correlation between economic freedom and economic growth with other socio-economic benefits downstream is based on capitalism, on the free market. It is what is needed, it is what this country needs. If you look at two countries, let me juxtapose two countries. Malaysia, population of 36 million. Singapore, population of 6 million. The GDP between the two countries is amazing. Difficult to comprehend. Oops. Malaysia has a GDP growth of 470 billion, and Singapore 574 billion. 6 million people versus 36 million people. That's amazing. It's really amazing. And when you look at the latest figures in terms of GDP per capita, you see that discrepancy. It's amazing. Now, the one thing that stands out about Singapore is that currently it is the freest economy in the world according to empirical studies. Some of you may know about some of these studies, for example, Economic Freedom of the World, one of them. And this shows that the free market is the way to go. Now, the thing is, you don't have to really solve the free market paradigm. You have to just simply demystify it, explain what it is about, and say that it is non-ideological. And you can use some examples, for example, which thing I have done, to illustrate the point. And one of the things that you might consider saying, which is how I got some people to proselytize. Maybe proselytize is not the appropriate word to use in this case, because remember I had those comrades that I used to be involved with in the struggle against apartheid. They were in exile, they came back, and they said to confronted with Temba, how come are you with this organization? You used to run workshops on capitalism, you run workshops on communism, and you were very critical of capitalism. I would say to them, I'll tell you what, during our struggle against apartheid, I want you to answer a couple of questions. What sort of things did we aspire to? What sort of situation did you aspire to? Did you want a situation where you could choose where you could go to work? Did you want a situation where you could open up a business, whatever business it might be, so long that doesn't entail force or fraud? Do you want to be able to send your kids to the school that you chose for them? Do you want to live in a place where you would like to live in? Of course, of course, of course, of course. Welcome, comrade capitalist. Where have you been? This is exactly what capitalism is about. It's not an ideology that's been imposed on people. There are no political commissars who tell you as to what business you could do, which ones you, whatever. It was a spontaneous order, that comes up from the bottom. And if you come up with regulations like nationalization that are going to interfere with that spirit of enterprise amongst people, you're going to have problems. Like this country is having problems because it's interfering with that spirit of enterprise that prevails amongst people. That is where they got it wrong in this country. We need a free market, that is what I can say, in order to get us out of the mess that we are in. This economic abyss where they're celebrating economic growth rate of 1 point something, which is rubbish. If you compare it against the population growth, it's zero. There's no economic growth that's taking place. Politicians are saying that we're taking a U-turn now, things are going to be better from now onwards. That is rubbish. Now let me end off with the words of Thomas Sowell. The government wants to do all sorts of things for people. Thomas Sowell says, if you want to help the people, tell them the truth. If you want to help yourself, let me not use this one. Tell them what they want to hear. Sorry for the moment. Now I just had this development. Oh, okay. I forget about what I was going to say. Just if you can come up with anything, trying to study the policies of the current government in terms of what it's been doing, what it is contemplating. It's not doing for the sake of the people. Not doing that for the sake of the people. They're doing it for themselves. Yes, Thomas Sowell, again, let me repeat this one because I want everyone to really internalize this. And that is, I quote him, if you want to help the people, tell them the truth. If you want to help yourself, what do? You tell them what they want to hear. On that note, I conclude. Now, I'm not sure as to whether this program, Nice Lord, allows for any interaction. It's all up to you. It's all in your hands.